Welcome back to the deep dive. I want to start today by asking you to just look at your hand.
Okay.
If you're like most people listening to this, you're probably holding a rectangle of black glass right now, or, it's in your pocket, burning a hole in your thigh, just waiting for you to check a notification.
It's always waiting.
It's always waiting.
Right.
We have been living in this era of the smart slab since, what, 2007? And every year, the slab gets a little faster, the camera gets a little bigger, the screen gets a little brighter, and we call that progress.
It's the definition of incrementalism, really. I mean, we've been polishing the same stone for nearly 20 years now.
Exactly. But the news that broke over the last 24 hours, it doesn't feel like another polish. It feels like a sledgehammer.
A total reset.
It really does. We are looking at reports coming out of Netizen, specifically two massive dumps of information released yesterday, January 30th, and today, January 31st, 2026. And if these reports are real, Elon Musk isn't trying to build a better iPhone. He's trying to kill the iPhone.
Kill might actually be too soft a word. I think he's trying to obsolete the entire concept of the screen-based economy.
That is a massive, massive claim. So let's set the table here for everyone. We are talking about a potential Starlink phone. But, even calling it a phone feels almost wrong based on what I've read in these documents.
It's misleading.
It's being pitched as an anti-smartphone. And the hook that started all of this was a post on X from Musk himself. Do you have that in front of you?
I do, yeah. And it's classic Musk. It's cryptic. It's condensed. But it's just so dense with technical implications.
Yeah.
He wrote, "Not out of the question at some point. It would be a very different device than current phones."
Okay.
And here's the key part. Optimized purely for running max performance watt neural nets.
Optimized purely for running max performance watt neural nets. I want to stop right there. I mean, usually when Apple or Samsung teases a phone, what do they talk about?
Megapixels.
Megapixels. They talk about brightness nits. They talk about, fancy titanium finishes. Musk is talking about neural nets and watts. Why start there? What's the signal?
Because he's signaling a fundamental change in the engine. It's a philosophy shift. Current phones are general-purpose computing devices. They're like Swiss Army knives.
Right. They do a little bit of everything.
They have a CPU to run the operating system, a GPU to render graphics for your games, and maybe, a small NPU for Face ID or some photo processing. Musk is saying, throw all that out.
Scrap it.
If the primary function of the future is artificial intelligence, then the hardware needs to be a dedicated brain, not a general-purpose computer. He's prioritizing the thinking over the displaying.
So, okay, the mission of this deep dive then is to figure out if this is actually genius or if it's just vaporware. We've heard big promises before. We're going to tear apart these two Netizen reports. We need to look at the hardware, which is just bizarrely small. We need to look at the power source, which claims to be solar. I have some serious math questions about that one.
Well, we'll get into that.
And we need to unpack this bodyguard concept.
And we absolutely have to get to the second half of the report, which I honestly think is the most important part, the societal stuff.
The big picture.
Yeah, there is a huge section on how this device utilizes something called the India model to potentially bank the unbanked in the developing world.
That part is wild. It's genuinely wild. The idea of a phone as a civilizational tool rather than just a toy you scroll on. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's start with the object itself. Part 1. If I go to the store in, say, 2028 and buy this thing, what am I holding? Because the report is very clear. It's not a slab.
No. If the leaks are accurate, you are looking for something that is closer to jewelry or maybe a medical device than a phone. The form factor is described as compact, earpiece-like.
Earpiece-like?
Think of the movie Her, or maybe a very high-end hearing aid, or perhaps a pendant you'd wear.
Okay, so it's wearable.
Highly wearable. The dimensions listed are 50 millimeters by 30 millimeters by 10 millimeter.
Okay, let me visualize that. 50 millimeters is, what, about 2 inches?
Less, just under. It's about 2 inches long, just over an inch wide, and maybe a third of an inch thick.
That is tiny. That's a Zippo lighter. That's a matchbox.
It's a matchbox, and it weighs under 50 grams.
50 grams.
For context, an iPhone 17 Pro Max, today's flagship, weighs over 220 grams. So this is a featherweight device. You could literally clip it to your shirt collar, wear it as a necklace, hook it over your ear. It's designed to be invisible tech.
See, this is the thing that immediately makes me skeptical.
Yeah.
If it's that small,
Yeah.
where's the screen? How do I doom scroll X if the thing is the size of a matchbox?
You don't! That's the whole point. That's the rebellion.
So no screen.
The report says there is a strong possibility of no screen at all. Or, if there is one, it's incredibly minimalist. Think a 4-inch e-ink display or a very low-power OLED. E-ink, like on a Kindle.
Exactly. Low refresh rate, maybe 30 hertz tops, 720p resolution. It's not meant for watching video. It's not meant for looking at high-res photos. It's meant to display text, maybe a QR code, maybe a very basic map. It only activates when absolutely necessary.
This feels like a direct attack on the modern economy. I'm not even exaggerating.
It is.
The entire app ecosystem, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, all of it, it's built on the fundamental assumption that you have a high-definition glowing canvas in your hand at all times. If Musk takes away the canvas, he's not just releasing a device, he's trying to break the addiction loop.
It's a complete rejection of the black mirror. Think about the psychology of a current phone. The colors are deliberately oversaturated to trigger dopamine. The animations are fluid and slick to keep you engaged.
Right, to keep you swiping.
If you switch to a slow black and white e-ink screen or no screen at all, you are removing the visual drug. You are turning the device from a master back into a servant. I get the philosophy, I really do. And I kind of like the idea of getting my life back. But practically, I need to see things. I need to see the Uber driver's location on a map. I need to see the photo my mom just sent me of the dog. If this device can't do that, isn't it just a fancy pager?
And that's the risk, right? That's the big gamble. But the argument presented in the report is that a sufficiently advanced AI can verbalize the context of the photo for you, or it can guide you to the Uber without you needing to stare at the map.
So it's trading visual bandwidth for audio bandwidth.
Precisely. It's a huge bet on the maturity of voice interface.
We'll get to the audio interface in a bit because I have a lot of doubts about how well that works in a crowded bar or on the subway. But I want to drill down on the power. This is the part of the report that made me stop and actually pull out a calculator.
Solar aspect.
Yeah. The report says this device, and I quote, drinks from the sun.
It's a poetic way of describing high-efficiency photovoltaics, yes.
The spec sheet lists advanced perovskite solar panels integrated right into the surface of this tiny device. And it claims it can generate up to 5 watts in sunlight.
Right. Up to.
Okay, stop. I'm not a physicist, but I know a little bit about solar. The sun gives us roughly 1,000 watts of energy per square meter on a perfect day. At the equator, at noon.
The theoretical maximum, yeah.
This device is 50 millimeters by 30 millimeters. That is 20.0015 square meters. So even if the solar panels were 100% efficient, which is physically impossible, you'd only get about 1.5 watts of power. How are they claiming 5 watts? Is this just magic math?
It's a great catch, and you're right to be skeptical. This is where we have to read between the lines of the Netizen report. If they are claiming 5 watts, they aren't just using a single flat layer of cells on that tiny surface. There are a few possibilities here.
Okay.
One, the device might unfold. Maybe there are tiny wings or a deployable surface to increase the total area.
Ah, like a little satellite deploying its solar panels.
Possibly. Or, and I think this is more likely, they are using multi-junction perovskite cells. These are layered to capture different parts of the light spectrum, visible, infrared, UV.
Okay, so it's a more efficient kind of solar panel.
Way more efficient. And perovskite is fascinating because unlike silicon, which is a rigid, brittle crystal, perovskite is a crystal structure that can be tuned. You can literally print it onto surfaces. You can make it translucent. And critically, it's much more efficient in low light and at off angles than traditional silicon.
So a normal silicon panel needs the sun beating straight down on it. Perovskite can sort of drink from ambient light, even on a cloudy day.
Exactly. It's more of a grazer than a sunbather. But even with that, you're right, 5 watts is a very, very aggressive number for that form factor. It might be a peak burst rating, for a few seconds, or maybe the report has a typo and it's meant to be 0.5 watts. But let's just run with it for a second. Let's assume they've cracked some kind of density breakthrough. The implication is the eternal battery.
Indefinite runtime. That's the phrase they used.
Think about what that actually means for your daily life. Right now, you are tethered, you have battery anxiety, it's a real psychological condition.
It absolutely is. I walk into a coffee shop, first thing I do is scan the wall for an outlet.
Everyone does. But if this device idles at under 1 watt, which it should, without a big, bright screen, and the solar can constantly trickle charge it throughout the day, you may never have to plug it in.
It effectively becomes like one of those old Casio solar watches. You just wear it and you completely forget about charging.
But it's a Casio watch that connects to a global satellite network and has a supercomputer inside. That's the game changer.
Let's talk about the battery itself. The specs mentioned a graphene-based or silicon anode battery with 3,000 mAh. Now, 3,000 mAh is That's pretty standard for a small phone today. My iPhone has more than that. So why is this special?
It's not about the capacity, it's about the drain rate. Your iPhone burns through its 4,000 plus milli by 5 p.m. because that screen is a massive flashlight, and the 5G modem is constantly screaming for a signal from a distant tower.
It's an energy hog.
A huge one. But if you remove the screen and you optimize the neural net chip to sip power, that 3,000 millia isn't a day of battery. The report claims it's 72 hours of mixed use.
3 full days.
And if you spend any time outside during those 3 days, it's basically infinite. It fundamentally changes your entire relationship with energy. You stop being a digital IV patient, constantly needing that drip of electricity from the wall.
I like that phrase, digital IV patient. That's what it feels like sometimes. Okay, so we have a solar-powered Pebble. Now let's talk about how it talks to the world. The Starlink, part of the Starlink phone.
The connectivity.
This is where the bodyguard name starts to make a bit more sense because it's supposed to be always connected. But again, physics check. The Starlink dishes I see on people's houses are the size of a pizza box. How do you fit a Starlink antenna into a matchbox?
This is the second engineering miracle that this device requires to exist. The report specifically mentions a built-in phased array antenna.
A phased array. Explain that for us.
So a traditional antenna, like the one in your Wi-Fi router, sends signals out like a ripple in a pond. It's omnidirectional, it goes everywhere, it wastes a ton of energy. A phased array is different. It's a collection of tiny antennas that work together, and using computer algorithms, they can electronically steer the signal.
So it's like a laser beam of data?
A very precise one, yeah. It can form a very tight beam and point it directly at a target, in this case a Starlink satellite that's moving 17,000 miles per hour overhead.
And they can shrink that technology down to 50 millimeter.
That is the multi-billion-dollar challenge. We are seeing this kind of miniaturization in the military and aerospace sectors, but putting it into a mass-market consumer device would be a monumental breakthrough.
But the satellites are getting better too, right?
That's the other side of the equation. Remember that the newer Starlink V2 and V3 satellites are much larger and more powerful than the early ones. They have much more sensitive receivers. They're specifically designed for this direct-to-satellite or direct-to-cell future to pick up weaker signals from devices on the ground.
So this means the death of the SIM card.
It means the death of the traditional carrier. It means the end of AT&T, Verizon, Vodafone, T-Mobile, like as we know them, as the gatekeepers of your connection. If your phone talks straight to the sky, you don't need a cell tower.
And no more dead zones.
That's the promise. Theoretically, yes. You could be in the middle of the Sahara Desert. You could be on a sailboat in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. You could be in a remote valley in the Himalayas. If you can see the sky, you have broadband.
The report cites speeds of up to 1 GBp's download. But then a later report, the one from today, revises that to 500 megabps, which is it. And honestly, do we even need those kinds of speeds on a device with no screen?
It's a really valid point. You aren't streaming 4K Netflix. You're not downloading huge video games. So why would you possibly need 500 megabits per second?
Right. What's the point?
I think the speed isn't for you to consume content. It's for the AI.
What do you mean by that?
If the device needs to download a massive update to its neural model, say a whole new version of Grok, that's a multi-gigabyte file, you want that to happen fast. Or if it needs to upload a large chunk of sensor data to the cloud for more complex processing, it needs that fat pipe.
Oh, okay.
But I think the primary use case here isn't bandwidth, it's latency. The report says latency will be under 20 milliseconds. That's what makes the voice conversation with the AI feel instant and natural, no awkward pauses.
Okay, that makes sense. Let's pivot to the brain then, because this all comes back to Musk's original post. This device is optimized for neural nets. We threw around the term TOPS in the intro, trillions of operations per second.
Right.
The report says this thing can pull anywhere from 100 to 1,000 TOPS. Can we just pause and explain what a TOP actually implies for a user? Is it just a bigger number for marketing, like megapixels?
It is often used for marketing, you're right about that, but in this specific context, it's about a fundamental shift in where the thinking happens. Right now, if you ask ChatGPT or any other AI a question on your phone isn't doing the thinking, it's just a dumb terminal. It's a microphone and a speaker.
It's sending my voice to a server farm somewhere.
Exactly. It sends your voice to a giant data center in Virginia or Oregon. A massive supercomputer there thinks about the answer, and then it sends the text back to your phone.
And that has problems.
It requires a constant internet connection. It has latency, that little delay, and it has huge privacy issues because your personal private data is leaving your pocket and going to a corporate server.
Right. I don't own that conversation.
You don't. But having 1,000 TOPS on device means the server farm is in your hand. The data center is in your pocket.
So the AI actually lives on the silicon.
Yes. The intelligence is local. The report mentions a custom NPU, a neural processing unit, inspired by Tesla's Dojo supercomputer or something called the AI6 architecture. This custom chip allows it to run very large, very powerful language models like a future Grok 4 locally on the device itself.
Why is that so hard? I mean, why haven't Apple and Google done that yet? Their chips are powerful.
Heat and memory. It comes down to physics. Running these huge models generates a tremendous amount of heat, and constantly moving the data, the model's weights, back and forth between the processor and the memory chip takes a ton of energy. It's called the memory bottleneck.
And that would just kill the battery.
It would kill the battery and probably cook the device. Musk's claim of max performance per watt suggests they found a way to solve this. Maybe they redesigned the architecture to put the memory inside the processor or right next to it to eliminate that bottleneck and be incredibly efficient.
So if I'm in a cave or a subway tunnel with no Starlink signal, I can still have a full complex conversation with my AI.
That's the promise. The intelligence is native. It's not rented from the cloud. It works offline.
That brings us to the user experience, this voice-first rebellion. We've all used Siri and Alexa and Google Assistant, and honestly, they kind of suck.
They're frustrating.
They're very frustrating. I'm sorry I didn't catch that. Here's what I found on the web for that. If this new phone has no screen, the voice assistant has to be perfect, not just good. It has to be flawless.
It has to be truly conversational. It has to understand nuance. It has to understand when you interrupt it. It needs to remember the context of your conversation from 10 minutes ago. It needs to be a partner, not a command line interface.
And how do they achieve that from a hardware perspective?
Well, the report mentions two key technologies: beamforming microphones and bone conduction audio.
Okay, beamforming mics. That's like the phased array for sound.
Exactly. A set of microphones that can focus on your voice and filter out all the background noise of a busy street or a loud restaurant, so you can give it whisper-quiet commands.
And bone conduction. That's where it vibrates your jawbone to send sound directly to your inner ear, right?
Yes. It means you can hear the AI's responses clearly without having an earbud plugging your ear. It keeps your ears open to the world around you so you can still hear traffic or someone calling your name, but you also hear the AI's voice as if it's inside your head.
That sounds a little cyberpunk. A voice in my head.
It is a bit cyberpunk. But the goal, according to the report, is to cut our average daily screen time from around 7 hours a day to under 1 hour.
7 hours. When you hear that number, it's just staggering. We're losing a third of our waking lines to the scroll.
We are. And the mental health angle here is probably the strongest selling point for the Western market. We are all burned out. We are all dopamine addicts. This device is being marketed as a promise of digital sobriety.
Digital sobriety. I like that. But let's talk more about this bodyguard concept.
Yeah.
Because Musk isn't just selling a sober phone, he's selling a protector.
This is where it gets really futuristic and maybe a little controversial. The sensor suite comes in here. The report says the device is situationally aware.
What does that actually mean in practice?
It means the cameras and the microphones are always on, always analyzing the environment, not just waiting for you to say, hey, whatever, or to take a selfie.
Always on.
Always on, always processing. The example given in the report is about physical safety. Imagine you're walking alone at night. The device's rear-facing sensors, maybe a wide-angle camera, detect a person walking behind you. The AI analyzes their gait, their speed, their trajectory relative to you.
And it determines if I'm being followed.
Potentially. It could recognize a pattern, and it might whisper in your ear through bone conduction, alert. Unidentified individual has been matching your pace for 3 blocks. Possible stalking pattern detected. There is a well-lit cafe 50 yards ahead on your right. Please proceed there.
Whoa. That's incredibly useful, but it's also incredibly creepy. It's constantly surveilling my surroundings. That's a huge privacy concern.
It has to be a bodyguard. That's the trade-off. It's a sixth sense. But think about the digital bodyguard aspect too, which is less creepy. The report says it handles your calls and negotiates your calendar for you.
Right, the executive assistant feature.
Imagine you need to call your airline to change a flight. Nobody wants to sit on hold for 45 minutes listening to terrible music.
It's the worst.
With this, you just say, hey, get me on the earlier flight to Chicago and make sure it's a window seat. The bodyguard AI does the rest. It navigates the phone tree. It argues with the agent about the change fee. It books the new flight. It only buzzes you with a subtle haptic vibration when it needs a final yes or no confirmation.
So it acts as a proxy for my attention. It's a spam filter for my life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It blocks the spam calls. It filters the noise. It protects your time as fiercely as a human bodyguard would protect your body. And this extends to things like Tesla integration.
Of course. The ecosystem.
It becomes the command node for your autonomous transport. You don't pull out a phone to summon your car. You just say, bring the car around.
Yeah.
My car shows up. It could even act as the driver, managing the logistics for a whole fleet of autonomous vehicles.
And financial safety, too. The report mentioned that.
Right. The AI acts as a fraud detector and a financial planner, guarding your money as closely as it guards your physical safety. It might notice an unusual charge and ask you about it, or warn you if your spending habits are putting you on track to miss a financial goal.
Okay, up until now, we've been describing a very cool, very high-tech gadget for, Silicon Valley tech bros, an expensive $1,000 solar pebble that talks to satellites.
Right. It's a luxury item for the developed world.
But this is where the Nedison report takes a really hard left turn. And frankly, this is the part that justifies the deep dive title. The report argues that the primary market for this device isn't San Francisco or London. It's the global south. It's the developing world.
This is the civilizational tools section. And to really understand this, we have to look at what they call the India model.
The report specifically mentions integrating the India stack. For our listeners who aren't fintech nerds, we really need to break this down because the report is making an incredible claim here. It says this one device can solve two of the biggest problems on Earth: lack of identity and lack of money.
Let's start with identity. In the West, we take it completely for granted. You have a birth certificate, you have a social security number or a national insurance number, you have a driver's license.
Right. I have a whole wallet full of plastic cards that say who I am.
But for about 1 billion people globally, that paper trail simply doesn't exist. If you are born in a rural village in sub-Saharan Africa or parts of Southeast Asia, you might not have a birth certificate. Without that foundational document, you can't open a bank account, you can't vote, you can't get a loan. You are, for all official purposes, invisible to the system.
So how does a phone fix a problem that big?
By adopting the philosophy behind Aadhaar. Aadhaar is India's massive biometric ID system. They went out and scanned the fingerprints and irises of 1.3 billion people and gave each of them a unique digital ID number.
So it turned their biological body into their password. Their identity became part of them, not a piece of paper.
Exactly. The report suggests this Starlink phone acts as a decentralized enrollment device. The moment you buy the phone, it scans your face, it records your voice print, maybe it even analyzes your unique gait as you walk. It uses this biometric data to generate a secure cryptographic identity, a soul-bound token if you want to use the Web3 terminology.
So the phone becomes my passport.
The phone becomes your citizenship machine. It validates that you are a unique human being, and because it uses on-device encryption, you own that identity. It's not necessarily stored in some centralized government database that can be hacked or abused. It's your data in your device.
Okay, that's incredible. So I have an identity, now I need money. The report talks about something called UPI.
Unified Payments Interface. This is the other half of the India digital miracle. Most people in the US or Europe don't realize how archaic our banking systems are. We still use credit card networks that were designed in the 1950s and charge merchants 3% fees. We use wire transfers that can take days to clear.
Or we use something like Venmo or Cash App, which is really just a fancy app built on top of that old slow banking system.
Right, it's a patch. India leapfrogged all of that. They built UPI as a public utility. It's like a set of train tracks that connects all banks directly. You can send 10 rupees, which is, 12 cents, to a tea vendor instantly for free, 247. There are no middlemen like Visa or MasterCard skimming 3% off the top.
And the Starlink phone integrates this natively, not as an app, but as part of the operating system.
Exactly. The vision is voice to pay. You don't open an app, you don't scan a card or a QR code. You walk up to a vendor and you just say, pay this vendor 500 rupees. The phone authenticates your voice. That's your biometric password. It identifies the vendor's device nearby, probably via Bluetooth or some other signal, and the money moves instantly from your account to theirs.
The report called it the automatic bank account.
Yeah, the idea is that simply activating the phone for the first time could automatically generate a digital wallet or a basic bank account for you. Whether that's an account that holds a central bank digital currency like an e-Naya in Nigeria or the e-rupee in India, or a globally recognized stablecoin like USDC.
This is just, it's huge.
Yeah.
Because if I'm in a remote village in Kenya, I don't have a bank branch to go to.
You don't have a branch, you don't have an ATM, and you might not have reliable electricity to even power a computer. But if this phone is solar powered and connects directly to a satellite.
You just bypass the entire infrastructure gap. You've skipped a century of development.
Precisely. You have skipped the landline phase of banking, you have skipped the brick and mortar phase, you go straight to orbital voice-activated digital banking.
This gives people agency. That's the word that keeps coming to my mind.
That's the key word. This isn't about charity or aid. It's about giving people the fundamental tools to participate in the global economy on their own terms. A farmer can sell his crops at the market and get paid instantly and securely. A local craftsman can sell her goods to someone on the other side of the world. It turns the unbanked into the self-banked.
There's a third layer to this civilizational stack that the report talks about. So we have identity, we have money. The third is knowledge. They call it Grokipedia.
I love that name, even if it is a bit heavy on the branding. The concept here is nothing short of an education revolution.
But we have Wikipedia, we have Google, we have Khan Academy. Why is this different?
It's different because of the interface and the language barrier. Most of the useful information on the internet is in English, or maybe Mandarin or Spanish. If you speak Swahili or Bhojpuri or a regional dialect of Quechua, the internet is a walled garden you can't really access.
The report is very specific on this. It says Grokipedia must support the 100 most spoken languages, including many regional ones.
And crucially, it's voice first. This is absolutely critical for the hundreds of millions of people around the world who are illiterate or semi-literate. You don't need to be able to read to learn.
So paint me a picture. How does this actually work in the field? Give me a use case.
Okay, imagine a young mechanic in a village in rural Brazil. He's looking at a broken down tractor engine. Maybe a new model he's never seen before. He doesn't have a service manual, he can't read one anyway, so he just speaks to his bodyguard device. He says in Portuguese, "I'm looking at a fuel pump with a red valve. It seems to be leaking from the base."
Okay.
The phone's camera analyzes the visual feed, identifies the exact make and model of the part, cross-references it with a global database of repair manuals, and then talks him through the repair in his local dialect. Okay, I see the leak. You will need a 14-millimeter wrench. Tighten the hexagonal nut at the base of the red valve 1/4 turn clockwise.
It's contextual learning.
It's a just-in-time professor. It adapts its curriculum to your immediate needs. It can teach a first grader basic arithmetic, or it can teach a college student quantum physics. The vision is that the device is the school.
A portable university that runs on sunlight and costs nothing to attend. It really does sound like a utopia. But I have to play the skeptic here. We've heard these kinds of grand promises before. Remember, 1 laptop per child, or internet for everyone via balloons. They usually fail.
They often fail because of logistics and, more importantly, cost. And you're right to bring that up.
So let's talk about cost. The report estimates the price of this device at $800 to $1,000.
Right, a premium price point.
How on earth does a farmer in a developing nation afford a $1,000 phone? That is a flagship price. That can be more than a year's salary in some places.
That is the single biggest hole in this entire utopian plan. The report sort of hand waves it away. It suggests government subsidies or maybe a financing model where you pay off the device through tiny fees on the microtransactions you make. But $800 is a massive, massive barrier to entry.
Unless. Is it possible Musk treats the hardware as a loss leader? You know, like how game console makers sell the hardware at a loss to get you into their software ecosystem.
He could. It's possible. If the real goal is to get billions of people onto the Starlink network and using the X financial system, maybe he's willing to sell the phone for $200 and eat the initial loss. But that's pure speculation. The report doesn't suggest that.
Let's put this device in context with the competition. In 2026, we have the iPhone 17 Pro Max, the Samsung Galaxy S25 Ultra, the Pixel 10 Pro. These are incredible machines. They have 200 megapixel cameras. They have 144 hertz screens that look better than real life.
They are the absolute peak of the evolutionary path of the smartphone.
Right. They're the ultimate refinement of the 2007 idea. But Musk's device, it makes them look old-fashioned. Archaic, even.
It makes them look like consumption devices. The iPhone is fundamentally designed for you to consume, to watch Netflix, to scroll Instagram, to buy things on Amazon. The Starlink phone, conceptually, is designed purely for utility.
And for durability. I mean, the iPhone is a fragile piece of glass. It cracks if you look at it wrong. The battery degrades noticeably after just 3 years.
The business model depends on that fragility.
Whereas the Starlink report mentions a lifespan of 10+ years. It talks about aerospace-grade titanium and carbon fiber construction. IP68 rated. 90% recyclable materials.
10 years. Think about that.
A 10-year phone. That completely destroys the business model of Apple and Samsung. Their entire financial structure is built on you getting a new phone every 2 to 3 years.
Exactly. If Musk actually builds a forever phone, he's not just competing with them. He's declaring war on the entire concept of planned obsolescence that has driven consumer electronics for 50 years.
But there are other hurdles, massive ones. We already touched on the physics of the solar panels and the antenna. But what about the politics?
The regulatory fight will be a bloodbath. An absolute bloodbath.
The big telecoms aren't just going to roll over and die.
Of course not. Companies like AT&T, Verizon, Jio in India, Safaricom in Africa, they have spent billions, hundreds of billions of dollars building cell towers. They own the exclusive rights to the radio spectrum in their countries.
And Musk is just going to fly over them.
He's coming in and saying, my phone talks directly to space. I don't need your towers. I don't need your spectrum. They will sue him into oblivion. They will lobby governments to ban the device, claiming it interferes with their networks or poses a national security risk.
Spectrum sovereignty. That's a real thing.
It is. Countries want to control their own information space. Think about a country like China. They would never, ever allow a consumer device that gives citizens a direct, uncensored link to the global internet, completely bypassing their great firewall.
So in authoritarian regimes, this would essentially be a black market phone.
It essentially becomes contraband freedom.
Yeah.
If you have this phone, you have uncensored internet and you have unseizable money. That makes you a direct threat to certain types of governments.
And then there's the privacy hurdle for everyone else.
Yeah.
The always listening problem.
This is the one that personally scares me the most. To be a bodyguard, to be situationally aware, the device has to be recording everything, all the time. Even if the processing stays local on the chip. Do you trust Elon Musk? Do you trust any corporation not to put a backdoor in that system?
If law enforcement comes with a warrant and demands the data, does the phone unlock?
The report claims it uses user-owned encryption. Theoretically, that means not even the company that made it could unlock it without your biometric key. But that's a very hard sell to a public that's grown deeply skeptical. We've been burned by tech companies promising to protect our privacy too many times.
We value your privacy is usually the first line of a privacy policy that goes on to say how they're going to sell your data.
Exactly. So asking people to willingly wear a camera and a microphone 24/7 requires a massive, massive leap of faith.
Let's talk about the timeline for a second. When does this sci-fi pebble actually drop?
The report speculates a working prototype could emerge by 2028.
2028. So we're still a couple of years out from even seeing if this is real.
Which is incredibly fast in hardware development terms, but it's an absolute eternity in AI terms. The AI models of 2028 will be exponentially more powerful and capable than they are today, which actually makes the vision more plausible.
So let's try to synthesize all of this. It's a lot to take in. We've covered the solar pebble hardware. We've covered the neural net brain. We've covered the bodyguard protector concept. And we've covered the civilizational tool for the global south.
It is a lot to process. But if I had to boil it all down to one single idea, I'd say this device represents a fork in the road for humanity's relationship with technology.
A fork in the road. How so?
Path A is the current path we're on. Better screens, more pixels, more immersion. The metaverse. We put on VR goggles, we dive deeper and deeper into the digital world. We essentially leave physical reality behind.
And Path B.
Path B is this device. It's the philosophy of invisible tech. The technology recedes, it disappears, it supports you, it protects you, it connects you, but it doesn't demand your constant attention. It actively pushes you back into the physical world.
It gives us our life back.
Or at least it asks the question, are we finally ready to graduate from the screen? After 20 years, are we ready for what's next?
And the geopolitical angle here is just as heavy. If this works, if the India model integration actually works and this device takes off in the developing world, does it fundamentally shift the balance of power in tech?
Oh, I think it absolutely does. If you are Apple or Google today, you are fighting tooth and nail for the top 10%, maybe 15% of the world's wealthy consumers. You are fighting for the person who can afford a $1,200 phone and a $20 a month Netflix subscription.
Right. It's a saturated market.
It is. Musk, with this strategy, is playing for the other 90%. He's playing for the billions of people who don't need a better camera. They need basic identity, basic finance, and basic education. And history teaches us one thing. Whoever builds the foundational infrastructure for the masses usually wins the long game.
That is a staggering thought. If this device becomes the default gateway to the digital world for the next billion users, Apple and Google risk becoming luxury boutique brands for the West, while Musk owns the effective operating system of the entire developing world.
That's the provocative thought to end on, isn't it? We might be looking at the dawn of a new and very different technological hegemony.
Well, I don't know about you, but I'm going to look at this glowing slab in my hand a little differently tonight. It suddenly feels heavy, clunky.
It feels like a relic from a different era.
Listeners, we have thrown a lot at you today. 5-watt perovskite solar panels, 1,000 TOPS neural nets, civilizational identity stacks. It's a lot. We really want to know what you think. Are you buying the hype? Would you trade your screen for a bodyguard? Or is that visual addiction just too strong to break?
And the bigger question, do you trust a citizenship machine built by a private company no matter who runs it?
That is the real question, isn't it?
Right.
Let us know in the comments or shoot us a message if your current phone battery hasn't died yet. We will be tracking this story as it develops toward that 2028 date. Thanks for diving deep with us.
Stay curious.